Okay, today we will solve quadratic equations by factoring when the leading coefficient is no longer 1. So let's take a look at a quick factoring problem. So the first thing, remember, we don't have to place that leading coefficient of 1 anymore because we have a leading coefficient of 2. So 2 times that negative 24 will give us negative 48. Now we have to determine what two numbers do we multiply to get negative 48, but when we add those same two numbers, we get negative 13. Those two numbers are negative 16 and 3. Once we have that, we're going to rewrite this trinomial as a polynomial. We're going to write it with 4 terms. So instead of writing negative 13x, we know that negative 16x plus 3x is the same thing as negative 13x. So that's what we write here. So now we're going to factor by grouping. In the first two terms, we could factor out a 2x, leaving us with x minus 8. And remember, we always want to say factor out a plus or a minus. In this case, we're going to factor out a plus 3, and that's going to leave us with x minus 8. So when we factor out that x minus 8, then we're left with 2x plus 3, and it's factored. I'm going to review those steps to try the next one. Hit pause. I'm about to start and see if you can get this one done on your own. Multiply 4 times negative 35, that gives us negative 140. Now we have to find two numbers in which we multiply to get negative 140, but when we add those same two numbers, we get negative 4. Take some time and see if you can figure out those two. And that would be negative 140 and 10. So now we're going to rewrite this trinomial as a polynomial 4 terms, because remember, negative 4x is the same thing as negative 14x plus 10x. Now we're going to factor by grouping. So what can we factor out the first two terms, the red terms? That would be 2x. That would leave us with 2x minus 7. And what can we factor out the two blue terms, the last two terms? And that would be plus 5, leaving us with 2x minus 7. So now we're going to factor out that 2x minus 7, and that's going to leave us with 2x plus 5. Let's try this again. 6 times a positive 4 will leave us with 24. So what two numbers do we have when we multiply? We multiply to get 24, but those same two numbers, when we add, we get 11. And that would be 3 and 8. We're going to rewrite it so that plus 11x or a positive 11x is the same thing as plus 3x plus 8x terms, and that would be 3x, leaving us with simply 2x plus 1. And what can we factor out the last two terms, the blue terms? That would be plus 4, and that will leave us with 2x plus 1. And now since we have 2x plus 1 in each of these terms, we can factor out the 2x plus 1 times 3x plus 4. Let's take a look at the previous problem we just finished. And instead of writing 3 and 8, let's write 8 and 3. Let's see what happens. We're going to rewrite it as 6x squared plus 8x plus 3x plus 4. Now we will factor out a 2x. That will leave me with 3x plus 4. Now in the last two terms are the blue terms, so you can notice that you might say there's no common factor, but remember, we always have a common factor of 1. So we're going to factor out a plus 1. So it could be a plus 1 or a minus 1. In this case, it's going to be plus 1. And again, we have 3x plus 4. Since both terms have 3x plus 4, we can factor that out, and that leaves us with 2x plus 1. 6 times 3 is 18. What are my two numbers? Two numbers that multiply to give me 18, but when we add, we get 11. That would be 2 and 9. Rewrite it. Instead of writing plus 11x, we're going to write plus 2x plus 9x. And remember, plus 2x plus 9x is equal to a positive 11x. So in the first two terms, I can factor out a 2x. That will leave me with 3x plus 1. And the last two terms, I factor out a plus 3, and that will leave me with 3x plus 1. Since both terms have 3x plus 1, we can factor out that 3x plus 1, and that leaves me with 2x plus 3. We're going to multiply 3 times negative 8. That's going to leave me with negative 24. What are my two numbers that multiply to give me negative 24, but when we combine those two numbers, we get -2. So that is -6 and 4. We're going to rewrite this as 3x squared minus 6x plus 4x minus 8. So we're going to factor out 3x out of the first two terms. That will leave with x minus 2. We're going to factor out a plus 4, and that's going to leave with x minus 2. Since both terms have x minus 2 now, we can factor out the x minus 2, and that's times 3x plus 4. Here we go with our very last problem to factor. We're going to make the x, so the diamond in this particular case, so we just multiplying the 2 times the 21, that's going to leave us with 42. What two numbers in which multiply to give us 42, but when we add those same two numbers, we get 17. That would be 3 and 14. We write this as plus 3x plus 14x. Remember, 3x plus 14x is 17x, a positive 17x. So in the first two terms, I can factor out an x. That leaves me with 2x plus 3. In my last two terms, I could factor out a plus 7. Again, not 7, plus 7. And that leaves me with a 2x plus 3. Since both terms have 2x plus 3 now, we can factor out the 2x plus 3, and that leaves me with x plus 7. See you guys soon on the next video.